Welcome to the Let's Go Recovery podcast, where we investigate sobriety and beyond that, explore solutions to help us heal at the core, where the root of our problems like addiction or alcoholism begin. We hope you hear something in today's podcast that ignites a change in your life. I'm here today with licensed professional counselor and doctor in behavioral health. I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Chante. Pontila. Got it right. Did I get it right that time?
You did.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor. We met at a mental health conference, fair. Yeah, kind of call it like that. And as soon as I kind of saw your cute booth, which was amazing, by the way, but it's super pink. We got the mic looking good, so you look great. But as soon as I looked you up online, I knew I had to have you on the show based on what I'm going to talk about is our jumping off point, and that is right on the tagline of your website. It says, change your mind, change your life. Yes. Tell me a little bit about that and where that stems from and what you're hoping to do at your business practice.
So I believe that everything starts in your brain. And so if you can change your mindset, change your perspective, then you can change your whole life. And so what I do is I help people heal from things that they consider traumatic or were holding them back, and then they literally change their lives.
Wow, that's such a great perspective. And when we talk about it, you're on the Let's Go Recovery podcast. We talk about people that struggle with drugs, alcohol, or addiction of any kind, really. And I think if anybody were to be honest about it, would say that's where addiction begins. That's where some of those behaviors begin, because I'm using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism. But I also can use, we talked about before the show, shopping. I can use sex. I can use gambling. I can use a plethora of devices, substances, people to do that. Tell me a little bit about how you deal with the fact that people are coming from a bunch of different backgrounds and a bunch of different perspectives, ultimately trying to heal from wounds.
Yes. So I'm a trauma therapist. I'm a trauma and attachment therapist. So I see everything as through that lens. And I feel like we need to get to the root of the issue, and what you're describing, there are ways to cope with life, but they're a symptom of the actual injury. Right? So I use EMDR therapy to help get to the root of it, clear it up, clear the disturbance, and hopefully there's not a need for those adaptations or those coping skills.
So tell me a little bit about EMDR. What does that do? What is that about?
It's a game changer. It's the best thing ever, but I'm also an EMDR therapist. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a type of therapy that helps you to reprocess these memories that once hurt you. And clear out the disturbance connected to the memories and all the different parts of that memory, because trauma is stored fragmentedly and it just kind of hangs out, and those are the things that get triggered. And so what EMDR does is it moves all of that traumatic material into regular memory, so that those things aren't sticking out anymore. There isn't a trigger that's connected to that memory, and then there isn't a need for a coping skill that isn't so helpful anymore.
Wow, that sounds very very deep, but also sounds very broad. When I say that, this isn't something where, I have to have a certain behavior.
Correct.
Everybody has trauma. I like to say everybody has pain. You're
Yes.
not alone.
Yes.
But things and I'm going to use a, kind of a big one, 9/11 isn't the trauma. My dad not coming home is the actual trauma. So every time 9/11 comes up, I guarantee person watching right now, here's 9/11, and it makes them feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. But it's not because of two buildings collapsing. It's because they lost a loved one. It's because, again, they have hurt. How do we get to the bottom, or how does your practice help people get to the bottom of what the actual pain, so trauma may be an event, but what's the actual pain and wounds? How do you help them get to the bottom of that? What's one of the behaviors?
Well, first, I define trauma as a threat that you weren't prepared to handle, and then I get some examples around that, and then I also talk about your trauma response to things, which is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? So that psychoeducation alone helps people to kind of see it, but usually it's whatever they're coming in with, what are your symptoms? And then we try to trace it back. Well, when was the first time? When was the worst time you felt this way? And sometimes there's a part of us, because we all have different birds of self, just want to normalize that, Mm-hmm. And so I'm where does that part come from? Or who is that part of you, right? Because usually there's a trauma or an attachment wound. So your mom's telling you that you should or shouldn't do something. Let's explore that. And then I help get to the bottom. I just start digging around, I guess, and then I find it. And
Is it just say enough words until you get that a kind of knee-jerk reaction? And it's funny because people that I talk to in recovery, that's actually still prevalent, and then it changes.
Yeah.
right? So my wife's wounds are different than my wounds,
Yes.
or my experiences, even in a very similar situation. So we're in the same exact place, the same exact things going around outside. We feel different, but that's because of her different experiences growing up, or what has happened. Somebody says X, my reactions, anger, and her reactions maybe forgiveness, or oh, that's too bad. And I'm going like, what? Like, how are you responding that way? Talk to me a little bit about that difference you're seeing in your clients as they come through your doors. And again, we're saying everyone is healing for something. Go back to what you said about trauma. Trauma is what?
It's a threat that you weren't prepared to handle.
A threat you weren't prepared to handle.
So that could be anything. Like when we got here today and I couldn't find the place, right? And I'm a fighter, so I called, I asked around, like I'm gonna find this place, right? Other people might be avoidant and run away, like, well, forget this, I'm out, right? So everybody has an adaptation that they tend to go to, and it usually comes from trauma, like it's a trauma response. And I think what you're describing is like the lens. Like that's the lens that wife sees things through because of her attachment history or trauma history, and then that's your lens, and they're very different, even though it's the same scenario.
So people have different experiences. So when they come in and they come from these different places and backgrounds, how is it that you're finding out or recreating what they've maybe told themselves that isn't true, and or the differences in how they see things today versus how they saw them years ago, or what their mom and dad told them about that scenario?
Yes. So there's a lot of history taking, and I think that throughout treatment, I'm still gathering information, right, as I'm getting to know my clients or patients. But I think that once I get the information, that helps me to see like where these events were, where these negative beliefs came in, what the narrative that was created, or who told them what. And again, like it is about what they show up with in the beginning. So like if I've got anxiety and I've got stuff around work, so to me I'm like, all right, there's something there, right? And then I try to trace it back and I ask a lot of questions. So like, what is your mom's thoughts about work, anxiety, dad stuff? Is there any military? Is there any adoption? Like we get like a ton of information because all of that trickles down into their lens of how they see things. And, I have a little like, I think that help me like kind of understand and like dive into that a little bit deeper, like if it's relationships, if it's eating disorder stuff, if it's work stuff, usually that's an attachment wound. But to be really fair, we all have mommy and daddy issues. It just is. But usually those things that they're coming in with are relationship stuff. I'm like, oh, there's probably an attachment wound here. So was it mom or dad? And then even just like the way that they speak or their tone, I'm like, that doesn't feel like you. So like, who was it? And I do also like to emphasize like those behaviors, those coping skills, they were helpful at one time. They might not be as helpful now. So I use a lot of analogies and like storytelling to like help people understand, and it helps with like relating and building rapport. But so like I said, I'm a fighter, so that's my go-to. So when clients are telling me stuff, I'm like ready to fight someone, right? But that's not really appropriate anymore, right? I had to fight for my place in this world when I was younger. That was really helpful. But now when the client's telling me something and I'm so protective, I don't need to go fight anyone, right? There are different ways to handle the situation. So I heal some of that so that I don't continue to do that adaptation. I just fight in a different way, like this, like advocating.
Yeah, that's great because it tells me that I can continue to grow.
Yes.
Like I've adapted a behavior, you said a coping skill. I've taken a substance in my body because that made me feel good for a period of time. And I talk a lot about that on our show, about that elusive high, like, or that elusive, I'm going to say numbing that happened where, that went away for a while. Like the noise, the voices, it worked, for a while. And then all of a sudden, like, I like the way I feel, right until I don't. Right until I go, man, that isn't working anymore. And then I need to get to the root cause of what's causing me hurt today.
Yeah.
That's the best part. I think we talked a little bit about before the show started about this continual journey of recovery, this continual journey of healing. Like we're both on that. Like just because I haven't used drugs and alcohol in quite a while doesn't mean that I'm healed or like I'm not fixed.
Yeah.
Like you're hitting on some stuff before the show and I'm like, oh man, maybe I need to look in those crevices. Somebody doesn't want to explore that, right? Somebody's saying they're coming in there kind of, maybe I'm going to say fist kind of clenched, and I don't want to talk about that stuff. But some of the ways that you're using to, I'm going to say, help them, get them to open up and understand that, one, they're not alone, and two, they can heal.
it's funny. I probably say those things. Like, you're not in this shit alone, right?
Right.
And everyone deserves an opportunity to heal. I think I do a good job of building rapport, like building a relationship. I was just talking to a therapist friend about this the other day. I don't care what modality we use. I'm definitely an EMDR therapist and an EMDR fan. That's how I see it. But the relationship is probably the most important part of any treatment, any business, anything, right? And so if I can just sit with this person and like help them to feel comfortable being in their own skin in front of me and talking about their stuff, that tends to help.
Yeah, another human being. You know,
Yes.
I know if you've read our material, but our tagline is that the opposite of addiction's connection.
Ugh, I believe in that.
You
Johan
do?
Hari?
Yeah. We sold it for sure. So I added a little something, but it says that our organization ignites passion and enthusiasm for recovery through the conduit of human connection. So people helping people.
Yeah.
Like when I realize, you know, again, where do you come from, where you were born, where you were raised is unimportant right up until I realize somewhere along the way maybe our stories connect.
Yeah.
Right? Like your age or race or sex doesn't matter to me. What matters is that we've been on some sort of path and go, ooh, I was there.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody can talk to my wife and say, I know what it's like to have a drunk husband. I know what it's like to have that addict behavior. And she can go, oh, and you made it through? How?
Yeah.
Right? And learn and grow. I guarantee your business is a lot about growing, changing,
Absolutely.
morphing.
And
Tell me
connection.
some stuff. Yeah, connection. Tell me a little bit about some of those, maybe even experiences where you're like, wow, we can keep the names out of it. We are still under HIPAA guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll laugh about that.
I don't like, let me see. Well, so first, I'm really proud of my office. So when you walk in, it's like a whole vibe and the energy is very different. It's not like a typical therapy office. Like, it's all pink, obviously. And,
Hobby.
yeah. And super like hip hop and just I do a good job of making things cozy and like comfortable. So I think that part of the opening up has to do with the setting too. I did some research on that and I'm like, okay, cozy equals good. So I think that's part of it. Let me see. I definitely am known for being a cheerleader for everyone because I want everyone to win. I want everyone to grow. And I've been saying lately, like, why not you, right? Like, why not you? You can do this. If I can do this, anybody can do this. That's how I feel. And I have a couple of, so I don't need to do names, but like consultees or like supervisees who have like just evolved and like created their own spaces and like their business based off of the work that we've done. And just I'm really big on visibility too, so like getting exposure and getting people out there, like I do that. I'm a pusher in a good way, right? Like I just want to cheer them along. So I'll get like emails or like texts, calls, like let's meet up, let's talk about branding, let's talk about this. And I love it. Like I'm obsessed with it because I believe that there's more than enough healing to go around. And so why not support everyone else? And if you look on my Instagram page, it's funny. Somebody pointed out to me, I do support everyone and I like make reels. Like I'm coming to their office and like supporting their stuff. And like, you can go see this person who's in the city. I guess that's another part of my practice, building a community. I'm really big on that. I have all these networking events that are super great. I call them therapy parties. And I always tell people to bring I call it propaganda, marketing material, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And now we've got like this table that's just full of like everybody's business cards. Because again, there's more than enough to go around and I want to like support everyone.
As you're supporting everyone, I think there's something to be said about the business aspect of that. But there's also this rebranding of ourselves that you're talking about, where
Which is what we do in therapy.
Right. They're so kind of I'm going to say in conjunction with each other or parallel to where now I've again not used the substance or not done the behavior for a while. I can rebrand who I am, what my life looks like. So now I can be that dad that shows up at volleyball games, and other dads go like, "Wow, you're good at this. Like, what did you do? Like, I know you used to be X," and of course, business is the same thing where we're rebranding, retooling, and as a person begins to reshape the way their life looks, I imagine there's some like daily practices, if I use that language, or is there a regular things? What are some of the behaviors or coping skills that you give somebody maybe that does struggle on a daily basis with whether it be a substance, a person, whatever it is? What are some practices they can put in place to help them?
I'm really big on meditation, or specifically guided meditation, because I have a hard time just like dropping into that space. And I encourage that with everyone, even if it's like 2 minutes, right? Like just to get into that headspace and just embrace that and feel that, because that will help to change your brain chemistry. Gratuity is another one of those things that helps to change your brain chemistry. If you practice gratuity on a daily basis, I feel like that's going to help just to make things a little bit easier. I also suggest for people to breathe because like we're doing it, but like maybe more intentionally, right? Take a step back, take a deep breath, and drinking water. Like those are like the things that I stick with.
It seems like so simple. You make it sound so like, how am I so tied up and twisted up inside? And yet you're saying something as simple as breathe.
Breathe, yeah.
Yeah, just concentrate. We talk about guided meditation. Who's your favorite? Do you got any favorites?
So I have the Peloton app, and I've been playing this one for like, I don't know, the last couple, maybe a month. It's Timbaland, and I don't know, he collaborated with them, but it's just like the beats are great. I love everything. I've been listening to it like daily. The same one, yeah.
Okay, we just want to make sure any shout outs that you have to give, we're going to definitely tag the heck out of them. So that's great. That's great. But the idea of meditation is just being still, right? Like, so there's a lot going on in our lives, and it's 2024 as we're having this podcast, and I guarantee if somebody's watching this in the future, they're saying it's even busier now than it was then, right? Because that's the way our lives were. It's super busy, but taking that opportunity to reset, go back to a place, and I'm going to use the language, I'm okay with me right now, right? And whatever that looks like, that's the idea of meditation. Meditation is not some external force coming in. Meditation is getting comfortable with me, and I love the idea of mindfulness. You talked about like mindfulness. What are some other practice where mindfulness brings people into a point of being centered, mainly with themselves? What are some other mindful practices? Breathing and meditation.
Breathing, meditation, yoga is really good for that too. I would also say just like sensory stuff, like being in this moment and being in your body and like what are you noticing, right? Sometimes we do like a mindful eating exercise and like you're eating this Jolly Rancher, what's it feel like in your mouth, what's the texture, you know, those kinds of things, because then you're in the moment, you're in that moment with that experience. And the reason why I suggest meditation or yoga, those specific coping skills, they help to increase the noticing part of your brain so that we are not so reactive to these traumas or injuries, right? It gives us a little bit more time to like slow down and decide how we want to respond to things. So instead of just fighting someone, right? Like I could take a minute, take a deep breath, be in my body, be in this moment, and understand I don't need to fight anybody.
I love that you said that. We had a guest on recently who we're going to steal her line, and she said, "Today I respond, I don't react."
Yeah.
Because our reactions are probably poor. Like, or and typically, right? They're I'm going to say knee-jerk reactions to the language used because it's just your go-to. Again, bung your back, have it.
They happen in half a millisecond. And it's because it's this threat or a perceived threat, and we're humans and we're built to survive, so we do the thing that has worked before, we keep doing it. So like the anger, the defensiveness, boom, we're on it, right? But like we were saying, it's not so helpful anymore. Yeah, so we can stop doing that. But I don't think that there's any amount of like talking that will get you out of a survival skill. So that's why I do EMDR, because that rewires your brain and it changes how you respond to things.
Rewiring your brain, there's some depth in that. Tell me a little bit about rewiring your brain and how it can impact and influence your life in a way. And again, I'd love for you to speak a little bit to the recovering person, the people that struggle with drugs and alcohol or addiction type of behavior, because we're talking about an actual continual use. Hey, I've used this substance or this person or this activity, whatever it is. Talk to them a little bit about the rewiring of what happens or what has happened to them in the past and how one can alter that.
So I believe that things that are wired together fire together. So if there's an attachment wound, an abandonment wound, right, like that feeling doesn't feel good, and like that is something that has stuck with you, and then we find something that helps us cope, right, and then we keep using that thing. So when we rewire your brain, we go back into these memories, these significant times that shaped you into who you are, and we clear out the disturbance so that it no longer hurts you in the same way. Which is the rewiring part, right? And then with EMDR, it's not just like taking something away, like this negative belief or this disturbance. We also install something positive. So just for example, like I'm not good enough, so we take that away, we clear it out, and then we install like I am good enough, or something even better, like I'm a badass, right? And then you continue to see your lens through that, like positive cognition, right? And that's the rewiring part, and that sticks. Because again, like I can't talk you out or into something, but your brain can rewire. Since we're humans and we're geared towards healing, like this EMDR process just facilitates that healing.
about.
I know, it's like amazing.
It is. I mean, it sounds like something that everybody should participate in.
Yes.
But recognizing that we can heal from so many experiences. Injuries. Okay. I like that, injuries, because we don't think of them. I don't think of them as injuries, but they are. They're wounds. They're injuries. They're things that have happened to me that caused me to pick up a behavior or substance. Again, all the things we talked about on our show. But better than that, I love the idea of replacing it.
Yeah.
Some people talk to me about drinking and drugs, and like they're abstaining, which is great for a while. But for me, I'm not abstaining from drugs and alcohol. I'm actually just trying to show up for dinner. Or I'm going to make it to that game, or I can't wait to participate in X. How could I possibly have drank or done drugs last night if I wanted to be on the show with Dr. Chante? Right? Like, that's the way I want to think of my life. Not so much what I'm not doing from my past. Not what I'm abstaining from or being absolvent of from my past, but what I'm actually moving towards.
Yes.
Then that's when you talk about implementing that new thought, right? So I am good enough. You are good enough.
Yeah.
For a listener that's watching that thinks, I just can't. Like, you don't know how hard it is. Talk to them for a minute. Tell me what you're saying to that person.
I probably validate them. Like, I'm so sorry that has been your lived experience, but it doesn't need to continue to be, right? Like, you deserve healing just like everyone else. We just need to find that for you.
Wow. Who is it in your practice? I'm going to say, and I don't want to say something that works for you, but like somebody that's in your orbit. I'll use that language. Somebody that's in your orbit continues to speak to you in a way that lets Dr. Chante grow. What are some of the people that are doing that?
I actually have so many people.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. Yeah, it's the network that I've created, and it's continued to evolve, but it's like a ton of very entrepreneurial, like very business savvy women. And then I think, my patients too, I feel like they definitely, they're like my biggest teachers, I guess. I don't want to sound corny, but it's real, right? Like, I'm learning so much from them, and just like how they evolve, and like that helps me to continue to grow. No one specific. I do a lot of self-care and a lot of pampering, and I feel like all of those people who provide services to me are all part of my support system. Like, they help me grow and evolve, and a lot of them are women in business.
Sure.
Yeah.
You said something that's key, I think paramount actually, and this can be business related, but also how we do it in our lives is create. You said, I created. A lot of people don't, I want to say they give up in such a manner that they don't have, they're powerless, right? The big book, 12 Steps, talks, step 1 is I'm powerless. You are right up until you take that power back, right? You've taken that power back and said, I'm going to heal. But part of that is I'm not necessarily that powerful, but my friend over here is. This person that's got my back, my therapist is powerful. And all together, you've created. Dr. Chante has created a group of powerful women and men if they're involved. That there's men. Okay, good. This powerful group of people that support you. You create that. Tell the person that's listening about that step of creating a team that's got your back. What does that look like?
I think that's interesting. I was thinking it's connection and community, right? Like, you create a community, you create that connection. It's funny because I help people with this too. I'm like, you need to go out and network, right? Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? I think it's like professional networking, but I also think it's just connecting with friends. Connection is so important. So I just encourage people to find their people, right? And not everyone's the best fit, but like, we'll find them, but you need to put yourself out there, be visible. Sometimes I encourage people to look on like apps like Bubble BFF or Eventbrite, or just go to the things and try it.
You hit on another thing that I think is I keep on thinking of all these sorts of thoughts. Yeah, this is simply checking boxes. You hit on something that's, I'm not just going, I'm going to say, and this could be for somebody that goes to meetings for alcohol or drugs, or somebody that goes to meeting for business. Don't just check boxes in your life, right? You said connect.
Yeah.
Really want to be there. And you'll find those people that want to be there in your life. They're not just there because, like, look at me, I get a gold star, you know what I mean, type of experience.
Don't fake the funk.
Say that again.
Don't fake the funk.
Don't fake the funk. Yeah, that's
a genuine connection.
Yeah, like, really be there, because when I need you, like when I really need you in my life, I need you.
Yeah.
We had a guest talk about having a 3 a.m. guy. Like everybody needs a 3. He's a ex police officer. He's like, I need to have 3 a.m. guys. That's the guy that I call at 3 a.m. Doesn't ask any question. Where are you? How can I help you?
Right.
Like you go, ooh, that's good. He's like, I never knew I needed that because I'm thinking I'm strong. Yeah, I'm smart.
Adaptation.
Right, an adaptation. His behavior, his upbringing said, you are good enough. Right up until he realized that this little magic pill was the only thing that made him feel good enough. Right, and so we start taking in again whatever substance, whatever behavior you start taking it in, really just to be enough. Right, to recreate this story, this illusion of that you are enough. That clouded mind, the person that comes in clouded mind. We talked a little bit about you saying that they are enough. Give me some of the early behavioral treatment, the things that you're going to do to get somebody out of you are going to heal. Like saying it like almost that affirmatively. What are some of the practices you're putting in place to let them know they can heal? Or some of the things you're doing?
I mean, that's a sad question. I think sometimes I will start off with something, I don't like to judge people's trauma, but like a little bit smaller, maybe easier to digest to help their brains and them to see that they can't get through this. So maybe like a car accident, right?
Okay.
Like let's say it was not a traumatic car accident, but if we can process that and clear through that, and then they see that, like it gives them this resiliency and strength and motivation, like, oh, okay, but I can do the next thing, right? And then we like move into, it depends on the client, but that might be something, I don't know. Like I said, I'm a cheerleader, so there's a lot of validation I think that you get from your therapist, but I also think I point out like, well, this is what you're already doing, right? And even though like this stuff might be, unhealthy or not so helpful, like I'll point out like some of the positive things that are happening just to help give them a little bit of something to like grab onto.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books on early recovery it's a book called Win the Day. It's by Craig Rochelle. It's a simple book. He's a pastor in Texas, and he talks about like winning today. Like, what was your victory today? Like, okay, if it was making your bed, getting up, running up, up to the mailbox, not a mile, not doing something huge. You won today.
Yeah.
Now win tomorrow. And then pretty soon you've got a winning streak is what his book says. That's
I love
such a great language because you're like, hey, you won.
Yeah.
Right? And I can see you being the type
No,
of
I
cheerleader.
totally do that. Yeah. I'm like, let's celebrate the wins,
Right.
right? Like what went right and what's so great. And I'm like, and you got out of bed and you brushed your teeth, like for reals. I'm like clapping and excited for them because
There were
that's
days
where
when they
they're
couldn't.
at. Yeah.
But there were days when they couldn't. We just had we have a meeting at my home in Mesa in a backyard, and a gal was talking about some things that were going on in her life, and it was like, you remember 6 months ago, none of those were problems because you didn't have any of that in your
Yeah,
life.
we do that too. Yeah, like this is the shit we're talking about now. Remember what it was before? And I'm like, this is so great.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't this beautiful? We're just
Yes.
complaining about your mommy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Or
that.
yeah. I do the thing like, remember when I do that, like the memory lane stuff.
What's that look like? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, remember when you first came in here and like these were the things that you were talking about and presenting issues and what we needed to heal, and now this is the thing. I'm like hesitant to talk about client stories, but somebody who was in like low socioeconomic status, no transportation, I don't think a job, all of these things. And now we're talking about like building her business and like, you know what I mean? Your homework is to get business cards and like go network. And like, it's just a very, different conversation.
But that's growth.
Totally.
Right. That's amazing for when you can put people in a space of growth, like morphing, changing, and better. Like, and you are trying not to use, I'm going to use limiting beliefs. You like that language?
Sure.
Okay. We're trying not to put limiting beliefs on us, because when I start saying I can't or I won't, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think I've
Oh,
tried
you
this.
believe it.
Yeah, you start just being that
You start
person.
believing these limiting beliefs. I want to circle back to what you said. So, and I do this with my patients too. It's not like I help, I'm on that journey with them, but it's that they're doing it. They're living their lives, right? Because you're like, you put them in the space of growth, and I'm like, I just show up.
I like that. I mean,
here, we could look at this swing, and then like they do it and they kill it.
yeah, and they've probably ultimately figure out themselves through themselves.
Yeah.
I have some friends that think somebody's going to sprinkle the magic dust, or they're going to go to the meeting where somebody says the perfect words. In the reality, once you discover you, which again is what drugs and alcohol basically tarnished, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of dampened that in our arena. Those sorts of behaviors, all they did was hide me from me.
Yeah.
Right? They just took away my pain for this period of time we've talked about. And then I start discovering myself. Well, then all of a sudden, myself yesterday isn't myself tomorrow, right? And so I get to continue to grow, which is the exciting part of what we're doing. The absence of drugs and alcohol allow me to play the main character in the movie of my life.
Yeah.
Like when I say that, like I get to frame what today looks like. If I want to hang out in a podcast, a cool podcast, a thriving podcast with Dr. Chante, like that's what I get to do. And if I go, hey, I just want to go have a quiet coffee with a friend, I get to do that. As soon as I put some of this stuff in my body, it's no longer an option because I'm at the grip of whatever it's telling me to do. Oh, go there. Oh, it's fine here. It's fine to do that.
Well, it perpetuates that.
Right. Starts a cycle of behavior. Talk to me about that. The new cycles, the new behaviors that you're creating in your clients or helping them create in themselves. We'll go back to that. Great job. Good job. You've been through some ego work. Look at you. You've helped them create in themselves some new behaviors. Give me some other things that you've seen them, I'm going to say, catch on to. You talked about yoga a little bit. What are some other things that people are doing or experiencing that you go, that is very valuable and our listeners need to hear about that?
Well, I think a big one right now is just the reframe, which isn't like new in the therapy community, but like helping to provide this different perspective on this thing that already happened, right? So this traumatic thing that happened and they're working through this stuff and they're processing it and then they get like a reframe suggestion and it just like is a game changer.
Give me an example of that. You're great at telling stories. Give me a reframe.
Because I don't want to break any confidentiality. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
come up with one for me. What do you know about me? What do you know about me?
I don't know too much, but you did say, well, I like what you said. Like, this used to be my life, and I don't feel, hold on, give me a second. Because usually I'm good, but sometimes I need a minute. Let me see. Okay, I got one. I'm not going to do you. I'll get me. Okay, so the stuff that I've been through, the stuff from my past, I definitely have turned that into this amazing healing business. That's the reframe, you know what I mean? It's not the shit that I'm like stuck in and stuck still doing or being or whatever. It's like I turned all of that. I think Oprah said, turn your wounds into wisdom, and so that's what I've done.
Pain into purpose, I've heard that.
Yeah,
and
I like that one.
Everybody uses that little, you gotta use the same two letters on that, and it's actually very useful.
It works.
Yeah, it actually is, because we see that what you say and the specifics are, and let's give a good example to the audience, is that, this event, and I'm gonna say, graduation, it went really bad. Dad got too drunk, for me. So I have twins that graduated high school. It was during COVID, and so they didn't, get the experience that the graduation should be. But also, I wasn't present for it. So here I am, all of that sort of experience. I get to look back now and say to guys, like, don't miss the opportunity to be at your kid's graduation. So I'm turning what my painful experience of graduation, the reframe, is like now I get to say, if I had something to do over again, I would want to be there for my kids, and I get to say it in their lives. Like, don't miss your kid's graduation.
Well, I think the reframe is, I love my children so much, and I've learned from my mistakes, and now I show up daily.
Oh, that's great.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
There we go. I just need a little.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love the idea of, okay, how do I look at that? And I think even just me and you talking, just in this moment, I learned something. Like, that's the beautiful part about not just, what we're talking about, what we're doing, but what Let's Go Recovery is saying, take action against you. Like, because you thought all these things, you did all these things. You created this.
But then you can create something better.
Right. You don't want that anymore. You don't want that to be part of your story. It doesn't have to be. How do we get a hold of you? I love what you said, and I'd certainly like to, maybe come to your practice. Maybe we'll do this again. You have a great website, a great, like a little space. I love it. I was telling our production team, I'm like, why are we not going to Dr. Chante's office? And you said something about the sound. We'll fix the sound. We've got a great crew. Genesis Images is unbelievable. So they're going to take care of all that. It cleans up the sound.
Okay,
how do I find you?
Next time, come see me. So I am at Dr. Chante on all social media platforms. My website is drchante.com, and I am physically located across the street from IKEA.
Okay.
Tempe. Yeah.
Oh, in Tempe, Arizona. Perfect. Okay. It's Dr. Chante, that's Chante.
Yes.
I did good.
Yeah.
Pontila.
Pontila. That's close enough.
I'm working on that.
So I just go by Dr. Chante because it makes it
right.
easier.
It does make it awful easy. Guys, thanks for being with us today. I hope you heard something that impacts your life. More than that, I hope you take the journey that Dr. Chante is talking about, the journey back to yourself, because when you find it and you start reframing the story of your life, I think you'll find exactly who you are.
I hope you heard something today that gets you to take one small step into the version of the person that you want to be. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel below, or you can go on letsgorecovery.org. Until next time,